Welcome back, everyone, to Playas Podcast.
Alrighty, Playa, that my boy.
That's mommy's boy. That's mommy's baby.
All right, let's get it.
Teeth check.
Good to go. Beautiful people, welcome back to another episode of Who Can Relate. We are rolling 3 weeks in a row. I'm so proud and so relieved at the same time. And I have back with me the Portuguese lover, the one who saved me from the streets. In fact, I talked to someone who was single recently, and they said the streets are really cold out here.
And rough.
And rough, and rugged, and just hard. So
yeah.
Happy to not be in them anymore. And with that being said, I have my better half back on the show. Honey.
And look at me wearing you, and look at you wearing me.
I'm wearing, hey now. I am wearing you. This is an old school shirt. It's a long story behind it.
The quality is like
still there, right?
Yes.
I know. I was thinking that too when I was steaming it out.
That's crazy.
This is 4.5 years old. Should have used them for the merch. Anyway, Shay has on another.
Oh, this is one of my favorites, actually.
Another collection piece of the Who Can Relate merch coming out very soon. This is the vulnerability one. If you are listening, it says vulnerability is rewarding. It's necessary. It's sexy. It's dope. Vulnerability is bravery. And then it says normalizing vulnerability for men. Who Can Relate podcast. So
this photo is something you took.
Yeah.
It's the same photo we actually have in our bathroom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the lotus photo represents just ultimate growth, and the way the lotus grows out of the mud is really dope. And that's how I feel like I'm doing.
This is literally my favorite one.
Really?
Yeah.
And that was like the bad sample. So funny. But yeah, I have a better sample, better material, same design, and in different colors too.
But I do really love this color. But I like the cream one you have with the red writing.
Yeah.
As well.
Mm-hmm. So coming very soon. Okay, if you're new here, sorry about all that.
What took you so long?
Exactly. This show is about people discovering their higher selves through adversity, vulnerability, big underline under that word.
Self-love.
And self-love. I am Justin, a.k.a. JD. This is Shay, also known as Shannon, I guess.
We have all the names.
All the names.
Portuguese lover.
Yeah. And if you're watching, this four-legged
is Chicago. He also comes with a nickname.
Mm-hmm.
And his daddy likes to call him Playa Man.
Let's play it. All right. So also a tradition here. We start off every episode with a quote. And today's quote is, pain doesn't tell you when you should stop. Pain is the little voice in your head that tries to hold you back because it knows if you continue, you will change. I'm going to say it again for the people in the back and for you because I know you weren't paying attention. Pain doesn't tell you when you should stop. Pain is the little voice in your head that tries to hold you back because it knows that if you continue, you will change. So let that marinate. Today's intentions, just to keep it real. We are going to dive deep again. Last week was pretty heavy, but very, very helpful. And this week is hopefully going to be a duplicate of that. We're going to be talking about a situation that happened between Shay and I over the last week or two, where basically it was me trying to have a check-in moment in our marriage, and based on a lot of the triggers that I caused Shay to have, she took it as a check-out moment in our marriage. So we're going to be just unpacking that and basically just trying to come up with solutions in order to have really uncomfortable conversations that are necessary, possibly savers in relationships. Because if you don't have them, you may end up breaking up or getting divorced in a marriage case. And when and how to do that.
What do they say? You either pivot or you part.
Don't be taking.
Well, that's what you said.
Yeah, easy. Look at you stealing the.
No, I'm remembering something that you pointed out to me.
Yeah. So I listened to
Jay
Shetty's podcast this morning, and he had a great line, and he said, in talking about, having these difficult conversations with his wife, like a quarterly check-in, so to speak. He said, a lot of times those conversations could either pivot your relationship or part your relationship. And I came out and I was like, I think that's what happened with us. I was trying to pivot. You thought I was parting. So we're going to get into it today. Honey, why don't you let the people know what in particular happened the last week or two?
I feel like we're still treading the waters of this, guys. So these conversations are very...
They're
raw, very present to today's time in our relationship. Not easy to have, especially, in public's eye. But after going through if you guys all watched last week's episode, we talked about the new realization of the resentment that I am carrying right now because of some things that Justin has done. And I think from just like the rawness of where we were, I think we were fresh out of a therapy session. Actually, we got home and we were kind of processing everything that our therapist had talked about and just some stuff that was surfaced, whether it was stuff I was saying, stuff you were saying. And I think like a few things just to kind of dive into that conversation a little bit. It was a lot of me facing with the therapist and with Justin, the realization of my resentment towards you. And you were also trying to download it all. And at the same time, I think you've been lately carrying a lot of guilt behind it. And I remember I noticed some of that guilt came out in the letter that you wrote me, where you talked about you don't feel like what you are and what you have been in this relationship, you're not contributing enough, and it's not anything what you feel like I deserve. Yeah. And simultaneously, like while he's feeling that, that's like heavy for me to receive, but also it's a weight lifted as well because it's very acknowledging in your part. And it's a weight that gets lifted because I feel like my feelings are valid. Mm-hmm. And I also don't really need to carry as much guilt behind my feelings as I was hard on myself for doing, because you understand them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we have this unpacking of the resentment issue here, and we're in a session with our therapist, and I started to not just be aware of the guilt that I had for this resentment and taking the responsibility, but I also had guilt from other things that I felt like I had been doing in the past. And so when we got off the call, I just opened that up, and I've just been thinking about, like, I finally realized now, after 5 years of knowing each other, that a lot of the things in the big timelines, the big moments of our relationship and now marriage have very much so been on my terms. Mm-hmm. And I said, the reason why I can identify that is because I now realize that the reason why I had a hard time of maybe delegating or even asking what you may want to do or when you want to do it is because I was leading with fear versus leading with love. I had a hard time trusting you. I have a hard time trusting people. And so the little boy in me, maybe, inner child, and I think also the fearful adult went into control mode, right? So more specifically, when I moved in with Shay, moved from Chicago to LA, it was basically on my timeline. when I proposed, it was definitely on my timeline. When we got married, more or less, it was on my timeline. Shay wanted to wait an additional year, and I thought we'd be ready the year prior, and so on and so forth. So there were a lot of things that I realized, like, man, a lot of this stuff is on my terms, and that's not cool. Now, this is like fast forward last week, right? I have this guilt feeling. I'm like, that's not okay. So I'm thinking, we've already unpacked and have on the table the resentment issue. We're unpacking a couple other things and putting them there. Well, let's unpack this and let's add another thing to the plate since we're here, since we're talking about it, since this is a safe space. And I brought up the fact that, I realized a lot of the things that have happened in our time together have been on my terms. And I want you to know that no longer has to be the case. In fact, because of what I've put you through, because of what we went through on so many different levels over these years, I just want you to know you have a choice in this marriage, in this partnership. And initially you took that as, again, the departing, the break. And I was like, no. This is like the pivot. This is like, I finally have a light bulb that went off. Like I hate that it took me 5 years, but I had this realization of like, I want you to choose me every single day. I would think you'd want me to choose you every single day, because ultimately we have a choice to choose each other every single day and to continue this marriage. And so I realized I never really gave you that choice or just, moment to process and sit with and to make your own decision, I guess, so to speak. And again, a lot of it stemmed from guilt, and I was really hard on myself. And so I just wanted to, lay it out to you. And that's the point of this whole episode, is having these really hard, uncomfortable conversations where they could either pivot or part. And we were starting to like part in this moment of this talk.
Yeah, I think I felt hearing you say some of those things, and the delivery was I don't know. I felt like maybe the delivery wasn't exactly what you thought it was on the receiving end. But what I remember when I was hearing you say that is, number one, it's hard to hear. Yeah. Number two, I felt like, now you want to say that? Like, we're married now. That's a conversation that I would have probably appreciated more in the early parts of our relationship. But maybe there's a reason that we didn't have that conversation, because maybe if you would have had that conversation, maybe I would have, walked to that door. But I also feel that I was also feeling in that moment that what you were asking was very obvious for me, not for you, obviously, but for me, I felt like, why would you ask me that? Like, obviously I'm here. I'm on literally cloud 9, the fact that I've uncovered, what the issue is and what I've been holding inside of me. And not only did I uncover it, but I was honest about it. And I feel like you were so receiving of it, where I felt empowered as a couple with you for us to tackle this issue together. And now you're telling me, but if you want, the door's open for you to leave. So it was really kind of confusing. But I think in that moment, because of the guilt that you might have been receiving, you were seeking reassurance that I'm continuing to still choose you. And what I thought all of that was very obvious on my end. And I think it was just like, it's a constant reminder just in general that sometimes you need to reassure your partner, no matter how secure you think they are in the relationship or how much you feel like you're putting into the relationship. Sometimes it's just nice to just have that moment where you were checking in with me and just making sure. And I think I failed to recognize that you were also walking into that conversation with so much guilt behind all of the stuff you put me through. And you wanted to make sure that in all the moments that I chose you or moved forward with you in our relationship, that I don't know, like, I also...
It wasn't too far for you to come back from.
Yes.
Yeah.
In all the moments that I was choosing you, I'm still choosing to choose you.
Right. Yeah. And to your point, I can't assume that. I can't assume that you're like, well, of course I'm still here. Because as I mentioned the other week, I'm like, I know you're still here, but I wonder if, are you still here because you're in your late 30s?
Well, hold on.
Okay. For context purposes, I don't know how else to say this, but you have a different timeline.
Yeah.
You're at the age that you're at, and knowing that you want a family, it's like, all right, I have the husband. I'm this close to having the family. I'm this close to having what I want. I don't want to just go start over, so I'll just do this. And that was a fear of mine. Like, and that's why I was like, no, you have a choice. And I'm sorry I didn't have this conversation 2+ years ago or 3+ years ago when it probably would have been very helpful and or necessary. So I just felt like if I don't say this now, I don't want to have this regret 10, 15 years from now. Like, oh my God, I knew I should have said something back when. So that's a little bit of it. And also, back to the assuming, I didn't want to assume the reassurance because the months prior to that, we weren't really good or we weren't where we are used to being. And so I'm like, I already feel that way. Wrote you the letter. Now we've identified why. For the most part, it's resentment. Okay. And I'm like,
the resentment
towards the financial resentment, right? Yeah.
But you also were asked, like, one of your questions was, is what you're feeling too far gone from coming back to where we need to be?
Yeah. So I used the analogy of, I got this from a book, and it was great. And it said, it was a father and a son analogy. I've said this before on the show, so bear with me if you've heard this before. The son has a really bad temper, and the father's trying to help him manage that. So the father says to the boy, every time you blow up with your temper, we're going to go in the backyard, you're going to grab a hammer and a nail, and you are going to hammer that nail into the fence. And so as time goes on, there's all these nails in the fence. And he says, now, every time you stop yourself from blowing up and you manage your temper, we're going to go back to that same fence in the backyard, and we're going to remove the nail. Now, all the nails at one point have been removed. However, the holes are still there. And translating that into us, I was so afraid that all those holes that I still left in your heart, in your mind, in your emotional state, in your mental state, maybe even your physical state, I was so afraid that it was gone beyond repair. And so I also brought that up, like, look, I know all these holes, all these nails that I used to have, now that they're removed, the holes are still there. Are you sure you can even come back from that? Is there more resentment than just the financial piece of it? And so I just felt like, here we are, let's just hash it all out as much as we can. And let's see if we can pivot, or if it is a parting situation, like, hell, I mean, is it not better to part now than 10 years from now, so on and so forth. So I just had these thoughts and all these feelings, and it was really, it was tough on us. It was really hard. We actually had this conversation that we're having now. This is, I think, our third or fourth one. This is the first time where it's in hindsight a little bit. And the ones prior were very much so raw in the heat of the emotions and the feelings. And, there's never, I shouldn't say never, but most of the time, I feel like it's really hard to have the hardest conversation.
But I also feel at the same time, it's through the hard conversations, it's through the hard times, it's through our low moments of our relationship is what really enables us to go higher.
Yeah.
Get stronger. Be better.
If both people are about that life and are really on board with that. Which
that's why I said earlier, I'm like, had I had the resentment conversation with you and you were unreceiving to it, I don't know that the outcome for our relationship would still be what I feel we have the potential for it to be. Yeah.
Yeah, you said that last week in the episode. So if you, here's the thing too. If you guys haven't watched or listened to that episode last week,
put pause.
Yeah.
Stop this one.
Yeah.
Go back, watch that one, come back here.
Yeah, because a lot of stuff we're saying now, if you haven't watched it or listened to it, it's not really going to make sense. So it's really important.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, ultimately, we just wanted to come on here and give you an update, I guess, for nothing else. And, one thing that I know for sure I think I could speak on behalf of you, Love, but one thing that we are not ever going to do is to paint this picture that isn't reality. We're not going to sit up here and, say, you keep saying couple goals and yeah, you're right. And blah, blah. We're not doing that.
But I feel like this is like when you can find a partner that you can be honest with, you have the level of communication, no matter how sometimes it could be really easy to communicate. Sometimes it's going to be hard. That's inevitable, I feel. I think that that's what makes a story. That's what makes like the beauty of a couple goal relationship, is like the rawness of it. Because we are not the only ones having these problems. And as much guilt as I had behind like having the resentment towards you, the more I talk about it with people, I realize that it's a very ongoing thing in relationships. I think what is like the breaking point is when people are not having these conversations about it, not being honest with themselves. And that's probably like, if I would have been honest much earlier, I think about it, maybe we would have fixed a lot of the problems earlier, or maybe we wouldn't have, because you wouldn't have been in a place to receive me being honest about it earlier. So I think like it all happened in the most organic, best way that it could for our relationship. And that's just like the entire course of our relationship. Like everything that I would have probably stopped us from doing had it been on my timeline, I don't know that we would be here today. So I'm thankful for how it ended up. It was a rockier like road getting to where we are, but we're here, you know?
Yeah, and I'm grateful and thankful that we are here. I think what I meant by the couple goals is like the picture perfect, can't do any wrong, always right couple. Like that's not us. It never will be. It never was.
I mean, that's always just a facade of reality.
Yeah. So I guess to try to help some people out a little bit too, and try to figure out if there's couples out there and they're trying to figure out how to have these really tough, uncomfortable conversations, but the necessary conversations. I guess we'll role play here for a sec. In hindsight, knowing what my intention was, where it was stemming from, and knowing what my message is, how would you have liked me to show up in that moment and deliver it in a different way?
Which part of
the pivot or part, I guess?
I mean, I don't necessarily think it was all you that didn't deliver it right. I also think that I failed to recognize the need to reassure you, and I assumed that what you were asking for me, I assumed you should already know that.
Okay.
So I don't feel that was all how your delivery was. And I think too, it was very raw coming out of our therapy session. Like I was just, peeling the layers back on this resentment piece, So I think like, I wouldn't really say that was the perfect time to do that. I think we should have really just like allowed a slower like peel back happen, and then maybe, say like, Shay, I have a lot of guilt behind A, B, and C, and I just want to make sure that you're really in this, and that you can take on what,
has been done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I can cut this part out, but I was just trying to figure out like some tactical stuff for them.
Like as far as
like what I said, how do you?
Well, I'll ask you then. So now that we're here, how like going back, like what do you feel like you could have done different? Like what would you advise a client in your consultation if they were going through something like this?
I think for the person receiving the information, like you said, just really try to understand where they could be coming from first versus automatically knowing how you feel about what they said. Because I think if you could have just understood, like you said, like
I failed to, I assumed.
Yeah, you assumed. And granted, you assumed because of, in the past, I've said often, I didn't sign up for this. I'm not sure this is going to work, which is all leading with fear. And that was self-sabotage. There's a lot of stuff going on. But as I said yesterday, we talked about this, I would have hoped in that moment you would have enough discernment to know this is the new version of Justin.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think that he's the one who's going to just, as you said in our therapy session, when things would get really bad in my life, I would just leave. Whether it was a relationship with a romantic partner, a friendship, I would just leave and not have to deal with it. And in this particular case, in where I'm at in my life in this season, I'm the opposite. I want to talk about it. I want to try to resolve it. I want to try to understand it. I want to try to heal from it. And so I just wish in that moment you would have recognized this version of your husband today versus back when.
I think like in that moment too, I felt very empowered by not only me uncovering the issue, but then how you received me uncovering it. And I felt empowered as an individual. I felt empowered as a couple, because I felt like we together, like, because you were able to receive it so well, we together are going to be able to tackle this. So when you instead were like, here's the door if you want to go that way, I'm like confused, like, what?
But that's how you took it. That was not how I don't think it's how I delivered it, and I know for sure it's not how I said it. It was just a moment of realization of everything for the most part's been on Justin's terms. I do not want to move forward any more days with that being at the forefront. So I'm just letting you know that, A, and then B, if there's any type of more resentment or, again, too many holes in that fence where you can't move past or move forward with, now would be the time to address it.
Then I think in that moment the delivery that I would have appreciated more is if you would have probably said, I've realized how much I've led our relationship, whether it's moving in, getting a dog, getting married, all the above. I want you to know that if we continue to do this, I will try my best to lean on you more and not be so controlling with taking the lead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's received. It's well received. And, in hindsight, it makes sense. I think I too was also in very raw in my emotional state and was maybe speaking before thinking. And I too felt empowered from our beautiful moment that was in the bathroom where we identified the resentment and we had a moment. It was great. I was like, oh, we could probably do this with other things too, So maybe it was just too soon and we needed more time in between. But back to your question, what I would advise people, that was one take. And then from the person giving the message, I just really think you have to, and this is me talking to myself, understand how the person could take it. I didn't even process that. I think subconsciously I was being selfish with I need to get this off. And I didn't game plan for how that would be received on the other end. I also wasn't being mindful of in the past when it has felt like Justin's 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Is this the moment where we're going to part, etc.? I didn't even take that into consideration because I feel like I'm so far removed from that version of me. And I was like, oh, she for sure knows that. And I assumed, just like you assumed, I had all the reassurance that I needed. So all this to say, really just think about, your delivery. Really think about your delivery. I had a really good message, but my delivery was just not there. And therefore the message wasn't received the way I wanted it to or the way it needed to be. So really work on your delivery. And I think in that moment too, based on how you got so defensive, I wish I would have backpedaled and been like, wait, I'm so sorry. I think you're receiving this. Let me start over kind of thing. And instead I was just like, I just made it worse. I feel like, I think we both just needed a moment of a timeout. Let's regroup here. What I'm really trying to say is I realized in our relationship through the years, it's very much so been on my terms, and I'm guilty for that, and it's really eating me up inside. I just want to let you know what I mean. I wish I would have backpedaled with that.
And I think what you said in the car yesterday, when you're on my side of things, you kind of wish I would have said, wait, babe, like, hold on. I am so sorry that you think that. And I just want you to know that, of course, I want to work on this. Of course, I want to stay. Of course, I choose you. And that's when I said to you, I was like, I felt like for me, that was very obvious. And I assumed that, of course, you already knew that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think that there was a level where I think you were seeking that reassurance from me.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's talk about that a little bit here, and we can wrap up. But the reassurance piece, right? Like you said, I think it is important that throughout your relationship, no matter if you've been together for 5 months, 5 years, or 50, it is important to reassure your partner. Now, I remember having a conversation with Duke way back, 5th episode of Who Can Relate, called the Vulnerable Renaissance Man, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And he was on the side
I
of...
remember what you were going to say.
Yeah, he was on the side of like, you're not responsible for your partner's feelings. And I was like, it's interesting to think about it like that.
I thought he was on the opposite side of that.
I thought he said, you're not responsible for your partner's feelings.
Go watch.
Yeah. Well, for okay. So what we'll do is, because it was 2 years ago. It's very vague, but let's just roll with this.
There was a dialogue between the two
about that topic. Mm-hmm. So let's go with that and mixed in with the reassurance thing. Do you think there should be more moments in our marriage where we're checking in with each other on the reassurance meter, I guess, and or how we're feeling about certain things, and is there anything we have to get off our chest?
I think so. I think for sure. I think also reassurance can come in different forms, in different ways. I think, or at least I feel reassurance can come from just your partner prioritizing you, including you in things, which you're very good at with me. That's something that I have to work on, you know? Mm-hmm. And what else did you ask? Or was that the question?
How often? And I asked because apparently we can't be around here assuming things, you know? So I think that's a lesson for us to learn. Like, I think we need to do that a little bit more often, whether it's in a conversation, it's in action, it's in both. It's setting aside time to check in.
Yeah, I remember when we used to write numbers on the calendar. Do you remember that? Or it was like at the end of the week or something, we would rate that week.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Maybe we, it could be subtle ways to be creative with doing stuff like that again. Mm-hmm. So it's not, it's not like always having to be some formal, deep conversation. And it's more like, you can just see what the week was rated. And if it's a number that's kind of off the normal, maybe go into that week and just say, and try to see where it could have, why it could have been off, and then have a conversation about it. Yeah. But that was one thing that we did, which was, I felt like was really good. Yeah. At the time that we were doing it. We also had created love boxes, which you've been more consistent with than I have. Mm-hmm. Now that it's kind of hidden and it's like in your office space, like I don't like, it's out of sight, out of mind for me, but maybe we bring those back out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think stuff like that, where it's more like subtle, cute.
Yeah. And the love box is, for everyone. As a matter of fact, we talked about this in the Duke episode. So it's a very important episode for you guys to go back and reference. But basically the love box is Shay's mom gave us this idea where Shay and I each have an individual box, and we take note cards and write out messages to each other and put them in the other person's mailbox or box, kind of like a You Got Mail thing. And one of the rules are whatever is put in the box.
We didn't really have rules, but it's...
Well, sorry, hold on. We had one because it was, we don't need to talk about it unless someone says we need to talk about this. Mm-hmm. But it's just a safe space for you to get off whatever you need to get off without being interrupted or without someone getting defensive. It's just for you to not keep it bottled in, but to let it out. and the person receives it, and their role is to just, take it on internally and then hopefully start to make some changes. But it is and was very, very, very helpful.
Yeah. I would love, like, fast forward, like, on our 10-year anniversary, like, really just going into that box and just, like, seeing the growth that happened through like what we've, because it's like you could write good things in the box. Like, it really made me feel good when you made my coffee in the morning,
Sure. Right.
So it doesn't always have to be something that you're trying to address in a negative way or highlight in a negative way. So it's also very acknowledging and reassuring. So
and being able to express your feelings. So maybe that's the
go back to
create love boxes in your relationship. It's a very helpful tool.
And calendar ratings are always good. It's kind of like a quarterly check-in.
Yeah, I really forgot about that. That was such a long time ago. Wow. Yeah, we definitely got to get back to that. All right, well, we'll keep this one short this week. I know last week, again, was really heavy. And, it's the summertime. People don't have that much time on their hands. They want to be outside. So we're going to keep this one short and brief, as I just heard the camera click.
Ooh.
Perfect. So this will be center camera. So thanks for listening and watching. If you are watching, please like, subscribe, and share on YouTube. If you're listening, please share. And if you're on Apple, please leave a rating and a review. If you guys are really enjoying these types of conversations between Shay and I know it's always requested, but it's kind of difficult with the schedule. But, we showed up here 2 weeks in a row. But if you're really enjoying these, let us know. Let us know if you want more. And as always, we're very open to accepting topics from the audience and from the community. Proud of us, honey. We've continued to prove to ourselves that through all adversity, we overcome. Play is proud too.
So jealous.
And let's keep it going. Love you, love.
Love you, babe.